Canada is deeply and actively involved in this process because we need to build a political consensus. It is not easy. The humanitarian and security catastrophe that's going on in Haiti right now is extraordinarily challenging. It is obvious that with the ongoing challenge, as much as the international community will continue to have a role to play, if we want a sustainable solution, it has to be led by Haitians themselves.
We're going to start tonight with the evolving situation in Haiti. As gang violence continues to envelop the country, Canada has started evacuating its embassy in the country, chartering helicopters just this morning to bring non-essential staff to neighboring Dominican Republic. That's happening even as Haiti's Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, who is currently barred from entering his own country, has announced he'll resign so the nation can attempt new elections. Though non-essential Canadian diplomatic staff are now out of Haiti, Canada's ambassador, Andre Francois Giroux, remains put, and he's with us now. Hi, Ambassador. Good to have you back on the program. Thank you so much for making the time tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
Can you explain to Canadians why it was necessary to reduce diplomatic staff and to make sure that they got out of Haiti?
Well, because the situation has been so uncertain, although despite the great advances that we made earlier this week with the political agreement, the airport remain closed. All the flights are canceled, and some of the basic goods are coming in sporadically due to some of the infrastructure issues. So we felt that it would be easier for us to maintain our operation here in Haiti by having a reduced footprint. So some of our diplomats who could easily do their work remotely, we've decided that relocating them to a third country would allow us to really focus, maintain our operation, and by having a smaller footprint, then we can really sort of concentrate our efforts to the few remaining behind and then carry on with our activities.
So is it primarily a security risk assessment that led to them leaving, or just purely based on the inability to kind of ensure you have enough supplies for everyone, for the level of staff that you did have?
I think it's a mix of many factors. The fact that the airport remained closed, obviously, is making it would have made every contingency plan a lot more difficult. So we thought that instead of having to do something in a rush, we felt that better plan, execute, take our time, and that's what we did this morning. It was a very controlled, calm operation where we reduced while we could. By having a smaller footprint, obviously it makes everything else a lot easier because we have more resources for those of us who remain behind.
And why did you feel it important for you specifically to remain behind?
Well, I'm like the captain of the ship, right? You know the expression, the last one to leave the ship. We have what we remain. I mean, we do have a good footprint still, right? I want to make sure everybody appreciate that the embassy, with the exception of receiving outsiders, public directly at the embassy, our operations are very much carrying on. And once the staff is well settled in the third location, we will be fully operate like we were before. Having me here facilitates, obviously, interactions with local players, stakeholders. It is important also, I think, to be here to show our support to what is happening, because we are very supportive of the efforts that are taking place. We are very supportive of this transitional government being formed as soon as possible, and which will allow then some of the security activity to carry on, especially the coming of the multinational force, security force.
I want to ask you in a moment about those efforts, but just as far as the footprint that does remain, senior government sources told journalists on Background today they don't want to disclose, or they can't disclose the exact number because of security reasons. But I'm wondering if you can help Canadians understand sort of how you would characterize it. Is it very much a bare bones operation physically left in Port-au-Prince right now?
I'd say it's more than a bare bone. It's a reduction of personnel of footprint so that we can really focus. But I'm not by myself here for sure. And then we should never forget that we have wonderful locally engaged staff that are carrying on with their activities as well. So when you take it all together, it's a very small reduction. If you take the whole embassy employees together, it's minimal.
It's minimal, so just can you quantify that in any
When
way?
yeah, I mean the balance between Canadian
Right.
employees and Asian locally engaged. If you sort of put it in perspective, we did reduce our footprint of Canadian employees, but we do have more locally engaged staff than we have Canadians. So activities are carrying on. We are very much still open, with the exception of not receiving public directly at the embassy.
Do you have additional security for those employees? For example, the Haitians who work for the embassy, just given how insecure the situation is on the streets at the moment?
Well, the fact that we sort of reduced our footprint a little bit does allow us to redistribute the security elements that we have so that we can use them and focus them to those employees that are still here. Yes.
And
Thank you.
as far as the efforts you were speaking of, and the transitional presidential council that was put in place following Prime Minister Henry's announcement that he does intend to resign, can you describe for us your sense of the degree to which that is or isn't being welcomed by political and civil society groups? Because we have seen, for example, some of the more prominent gang leaders reject that idea, and it appears from the outside like things are in flux. What can you tell us from inside the country about that?
Well, I think within the legitimate side of society, and I'm thinking the major stakeholders or general population, it is very much welcome. The transitional government hasn't been put in place to please the gang leaders. I want you to really appreciate that that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is create this government, transitional government, that is constituted by the main political, civil society, business forces of Haiti, so that they can really build a roadmap, a clear roadmap towards free and fair elections. This is a threat to the gang leaders. So, and this is an alternative to the chaos that the gang leaders would bring if they were to take power by force. So, yes, of course they don't like it, and they will probably do everything they can to try to make it unsuccessful. So I think again here, the general population, I can assure you, is supportive. What we need to do is make sure that it moves along as it was designed and conceived, and as soon as possible.
How does that happen? I guess I wonder, because I understand your point. They're not legitimate political leaders, certainly actually as far from that as you can imagine. But they have an incredible amount of power. I mean, they are the ones who've shut down the airport.
Yes, and the police is making efforts to try to secure the airports, but the size of an airport makes it challenging. But there are genuine efforts taking place, and that's moving in the right direction. I mean, the insecurity, the strength of the gangs, has been something that Haiti has been dealing with for the last few years. It has come to a point now that we really need this external inject of security, and that's why we're working very hard to mobilize the multinational security support mission.
Just before I let you go, Ambassador, I did want to just ask you from a logistical perspective about, there's just under 3,000 Canadians registered with the federal government in Haiti. My understanding is from that background briefing, fewer than 100 of them have essentially called your embassy to inquire on various things since the violence really in earnest broke out March 3rd and on. If there is more need or if there are more asks for assistance in getting out of Haiti, is that something the government of Canada has the capacity to provide?
We don't think we're at that point yet, but I would reassure everybody that this is the sort of planning that we always do. We always have to be ready for every eventuality, and if if the need is there, I believe we will rise to the occasion. The one thing that we have to keep in mind is that our travel advisory for the last year and a half has been saying, don't come to Haiti. If you are in Haiti, leave. So I believe that those who are here came here with very open eyes and we're ready for this sort of situation we are facing now. So I mean, we do ask them to shelter in place, avoid unnecessary movement, please have rations of water and food and medicine, and be in touch with us so that we know who you are, where you are. And if the time come, we will, I believe, do what is required. But for the time being, as uncomfortable as it is, we are still very much, some of us are still very much here. I am here, and I don't intend to depart anytime soon.
And so just to be clear, there's no plans underway for a mass evacuation. There's no active plans. Would that be a fair characterization?
That would be a fair characterization, yes.
Okay.
There's lots of planning. There's lots of planning
case.
going on, but there's no plan to execute this in any time. Well, not currently.
Okay, Ambassador, I'll leave it on that note. I do appreciate your time again, and again, please do stay safe.
Thank you very much.